M intersection. The applicant will provide one entering lane and one exiting lane along Road M and provide stop control on the Road M exit approach. That addresses the site accesses. In terms of off-site intersections, in accordance with PennDOT's criteria as stated previously, the development operates within the confines of PennDOT's allowable increase in delay, and therefore mitigation improvements are not required. However, the applicant has committed to the following off-site improvements. At the intersection of Route 202 with Skiles Boulevard and Stetson School Drive, in order to mitigate traffic impacts due to the redistribution of existing traffic resulting from the connections of the Collector Road and Orvis Way, the applicant will provide for the Stetson School Drive approach to 202, an approach that provides 2 left turn lanes and a shared through right turn lane, and then improvements along the Skiles Boulevard approach to 202 to align with the new Stetson School configuration, which provides Skiles Boulevard with a dedicated left turn lane, a dedicated through lane, and a dedicated right turn lane. At the intersection of 202 and West Pleasant Grove Road, although the traffic impact from the development is within the allowable PennDOT overall delay increase threshold, the applicant has committed to provide a dedicated right turn lane along southbound Route 202. At the off-site intersection of 926 and New Street, although the traffic impact from the development is within PennDOT's allowable overall delay increase threshold, the applicant will complete traffic signal retiming optimization and install equipment to coordinate with the new signal to be provided at the Collector Road intersection with 926, which is at the direction of PennDOT. Additionally, the applicant has offered to provide a dedicated westbound 926 right turn lane at New Street, since this widening can be provided within property that the applicant controls. PennDOT also required the applicant to assess providing dedicated left turn lanes in both directions along 926 at New Street, which the applicant has examined.
Okay, Nicole, let's focus on the 926 New Street, since you just touched on that. Is additional right-of-way required to install the dedicated left turn lanes you just mentioned?
Yes, additional right-of-way outside of the control of the applicant is required.
And based upon your knowledge, if the additional right-of-way is acquired, will Toll install those improvements?
Yes.
Have you designed the required improvements for the 926 New Street intersection, as well as the 202 southbound right turn lane at West Pleasant Grove Road and the 202 Skiles and Stetson School Boulevard intersection improvements?
We have completed conceptual plans for all of those off-site intersection improvements.
Okay, I'd like to show you what I've marked as exhibits A48, A, B, and C. Once they're up, Nicole, I'd ask that you go through each one of them one at a time. And for the record, exhibits A48, A, B, and C are the designs for the required improvements that we were just discussing. So let's start with exhibit A48A. Nicole, if you could please describe what's being depicted here.
Sure. This exhibit shows the intersection of 926 and New Street. It illustrates the dedicated left turn lanes in each direction along 926, as well as the dedicated westbound right turn lane. And ultimately, this plan depicts that additional right-of-way is required from the applicant on the northeast corner, as well as along the south side of 926, both on the east and west quadrants.
Okay, if we could go to Exhibit A48B. Nicole, if you could please describe what is shown on Exhibit A48B, please.
Sure. This exhibit illustrates the improvements at the intersection of 202 with Stetson School Drive and Skiles Boulevard in order to provide the modified approach on Stetson School Drive to provide the dual left turn lanes and the shared through right, and then the improvements on the Skiles Boulevard side to appropriately align with Stetson School Drive. And to maintain 3 lanes, a left, a through, and a right, exiting Skiles Boulevard. It depicts that additional right-of-way is needed on the northeast quadrant of the intersection.
Okay, and let's turn to the last one, Exhibit A48C, please. And Nicole, if you'd be so kind as to describe what is shown on Exhibit A48C, please.
Yes, this exhibit depicts the intersection of 202 and West Pleasant Grove Road, and the applicant's proposed dedicated southbound 202 right turn lane. And as depicted in this exhibit, no additional right-of-way outside of what already exists is required to accommodate that improvement.
Just to summarize, did you prepare or supervise the preparation of all 3 of these designs?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and have they been submitted to PennDOT for review and approval?
Yes, they have.
I'd like to show you what I've marked as Exhibit A49. For the record, A49 are copies of letters and emails from PennDOT regarding the intersection designs and signal timing coordination for the 926 New Street as well as 202 Skiles and Stetson signalization. Nicole, do these emails accurately reflect your understanding of PennDOT's current position on the designs you prepared?
Yes, they do.
We just went through those designs of the off-site intersections, and I believe you had stated that some had adequate right-of-way available and some didn't. If you could summarize again which improvements have adequate right-of-way and which ones require additional right-of-way.
Certainly. The intersection of 202 and West Pleasant Grove Road requires no additional right-of-way to complete the applicant's proposed improvements. The intersections of 202, Skiles Boulevard, Stetson School Drive, as well as Route 926 and New Street, both require additional right-of-way to complete the improvements.
With respect to those intersections that require additional right-of-way, has Toll taken any steps to acquire the additional right-of-way required to construct the improvements?
Yes, they have contacted the affected property owners with the conceptual plans and improvements information for discussion.
Okay, I'd like to show you what I've marked as Exhibits A, 50A, and B. And for the record, these are letters to the property owners, the affected property owners, offering to purchase additional rights of way. Is Exhibit A50 to your understanding and knowledge Toll's attempts to purchase the necessary rights of way?
Yes.
Do you know whether any of the property owners have responded to Toll's offers to purchase the additional right-of-way?
Yes, both the Spackmans and Westtown Reserve, as well as Thornbury Township, have responded to the applicant.
Okay. I'd like to show you what I've marked as Exhibit A51. which is a letter from the Spackman estate. According to the letter, what is your understanding with respect to the Spackman's willingness to sell the additional right-of-way needed at the 926 New Street intersection?
As I understand it, based on the Spackman's response, as shown as Exhibit A51, they indicated they would not provide the necessary right-of-way to complete the widening necessary to provide the left turn lanes along 926 at New Street.
Okay. I'd like to show you what I've marked as Exhibit A52. And for the record, this is a letter from Thornbury Township with respect to the 926 New Street rights-of-way that are required for the improvements. What is your understanding of Thornbury Township's position with respect to making the additional improvements at the intersection?
Based on their letter, it's my understanding that Thornbury is not agreeable to the additional right-of-way in order to protect historic resources.
One of Thornbury's comments was for the applicant to consider moving the intersection improvements more northwards onto the subject property. Did you analyze whether that could occur and whether the proposed dedicated left turn lanes could be constructed if the improvements were moved northwards?
We have reviewed that condition. The impacts and necessary right-of-way would be required from the property on the northwest quadrant of the intersection, where there's a large existing tree, there's an embankment, and the existing home on that property is today only about 15 feet from the edge of the roadway. So there would be major impacts to that property and structure.
And why would there be impacts to that property or structure? How would the road be designed if it was shifted northwards?
So in order to avoid impacts along the south, the widening would be pushed to the north. And so 926, the existing edge of road along 926 would be pushed north to accommodate that additional lane required to provide the dedicated left turn lanes.
So they'd mirror each other on both sides of New Street?
Correct.
What happens if the additional right-of-way along the southern side of Route 926 at the 926 New Street intersection cannot be acquired?
If the right-of-way cannot be acquired, the applicant cannot provide dedicated left turn lanes in both directions along 926.
Okay. I'd like to show you what I've marked as Exhibit A53. For the record, this is a June 17, 2020 email from Fran Haney, PennDOT District 6 right-of-way manager. What is your understanding of PennDOT's position with respect to what would happen if the additional right-of-way could not be acquired?
In Fran's email within this exhibit, he indicates that PennDOT will require the applicant to provide a design that keeps all improvements within the existing right-of-way, and would permit the applicant to even eliminate the dedicated 926 westbound right turn lane in order to reduce overall widening impacts at the intersection, even though that can be provided within property controlled by the applicant.
But ultimately, do you agree with me that it's up to PennDOT to determine what improvements are constructed at that intersection?
It is, yes.
How about the other intersection where additional right-of-way was required? That's the intersection of Skiles, Route 202, and Stetson Boulevard, Stetson School Boulevard.
The applicant reached out to the property owner there. The property owner responded in agreement to convey the required additional right-of-way for those improvements.
Okay, so Toll will be able to construct those improvements if approved by PennDOT, is that correct?
That is correct.
If we can put Exhibit A47 back up. Nicole, one of the major focuses of the first application was dealing with the collector road from West Pleasant Grove to Route 926. Do you recall the significance during the first application?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What is the impact of the applicant now agreeing to construct that collector road? How does it improve traffic at the 926 Route 202 intersection?
Sure. So the collector road, as envisioned by the township, is provided in the plan, and it provides an alternate route for traffic to travel between Route 202 and Route 926 without the need to travel through the intersection of Route 202 and Route 926 itself. With the collector road and with Orbis Way, which has been constructed by others, traffic will have access in this portion of the township to the signal that exists at Route 202 and Stetson School, Skiles Boulevard, as another route option. Site traffic will also utilize the collector road as an alternate route option to the intersection of 202 and 926, thus lessening any impacts at that intersection.
Okay. And as a result of the construction of the collector road, is toll required under PennDOT standards to construct any improvements at the Route 202-926 intersection?
As a result of the collector road, the development is within allowable traffic impact per PennDOT criteria that was discussed previously tonight, and therefore physical improvements are not required at the intersection of Route 202 and Route 926.
And isn't it true that that is the design of the collector road to alleviate traffic from the Route 202-926 intersection?
That is correct. That is its intended function.
Regardless of the collector road, do you know whether PennDOT still intends to construct improvements at the Route 926-202 intersection to address existing levels of services?
PennDOT has indicated they are actively in the final engineering phase for these improvements to implement them.
Okay. And as part of this application, did toll representatives from the township and representatives from Thornbury Township attend a meeting with PennDOT to discuss the state highway road improvements surrounding the property?
Yes, and that meeting occurred February 11th of 2020.
Did you attend and prepare meeting minutes of that meeting?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I'd like to show you what I've marked as Exhibit A54. Is this a copy of your February 11, 2020? I think it was dated wrong there. It says 2010. I think it's 2020 meeting minutes.
That is correct. That is a typo. It is 2020.
Okay. Prior to finalizing the minutes, were they circulated among all attendees for comment?
They were, yes.
Okay. At the meeting, is your understanding that PennDOT confirmed that 202-926 intersection improvements would effectively mitigate traffic impact from the proposed development at the Route 202-926 intersection?
Yes, given the situation being that PennDOT is pursuing the final design and construction of improvements at 202 and 926, the applicant would be within their rights to count that as a mitigation improvement if it was necessary.
Right, and is that highlighted in the first bullet point of your minutes?
It is, yes.
Okay. And in this case, is it necessary for the applicant to rely upon that PennDOT improvement for its mitigation?
It is not. As stated earlier this evening, the development's impact with the collector road in place are within PennDOT's allowable threshold, and therefore physical improvements at 202 and 926 are not required for mitigation.
Okay. All right, switching focus to West Pleasant Grove Road. Based on your analysis, what is required at the West Pleasant Grove Road and collector intersection? Maybe we should put Exhibit 847 back up. And if we could zoom in, please.
So at the intersection of West Pleasant Grove Road and the collector road, again, one entering lane and one exiting lane along the collector road is required and provided, and stop control is provided on the Collector Road exit approach. With this configuration and traffic control, this intersection will operate at the highest level of service A grade overall, and highly acceptable level of service A and B as in boy for all movements.
Okay, Nicole, what would need to occur in order for there to be more than one stop sign placed at that intersection?
So there are traffic volume warrants in terms of the number of vehicles on each approach that determine whether an all-way stop control should be installed. Another factor is if there was a sight distance issue. This intersection, as projected volumes were prepared for the traffic study, do not warrant an all-way stop, and the sight distance requirements are provided at the intersection. So there is no justification or need in terms of traffic operations for an all-way stop installation.
And what about a traffic signal? Is that even more drastic in terms of the requirements?
It is. There are also traffic volume warrants for a signal. They are much higher than that of an all-way stop. There are other factors that do not apply at this location, so it would really be dictated by the traffic volumes, and this intersection, as I stated, doesn't warrant the lower volume warrants for an all-way stop, so it's far from warranting a traffic signal.
Okay. Is a roundabout required at this intersection?
A roundabout is not required. There is not set warrant criteria like there is for the all-way stop or the traffic signal. But it is typical when you're considering traffic control at an intersection that would warrant signalization that you would also consider a traditional full-size roundabout. So you can equate, although it's not a hard criteria, that typically you are looking at a traditional full-size roundabout at an intersection where you would also be considering and warranting a traffic signal, again, which we do not have here.
The testimony you just gave about this intersection, is that set forth in your July 29, 2020 response letter that's part of Exhibit A45?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is there a safety issue at this intersection that would require the construction of a roundabout that you know of?
No, there is not a safety condition that would require the construction of a roundabout. As demonstrated in the traffic study, the proposed design and traffic control accommodates the traffic with low vehicle delay, and the sight distance requirements are achieved, which demonstrate the proposed intersection as safe and efficient access.
And notwithstanding your analysis, did you analyze this intersection for the construction of a roundabout?
We did, yes.
Okay, and I'd like to show you what I've marked as Exhibit A55. And just for the record, Exhibit A55 shows a construction of a full roundabout at the intersection of the Collector Road and West Pleasant Grove Road. Nicole, did you prepare this plan?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and just briefly, could you describe what it depicts and how it's designed?
Certainly. So this depicts a full-size, single-lane roundabout. It has been shifted, you can see in the blue color to the right of the exhibit. That is the Collector Road as proposed in the development plan, submitted as part of the conditional use. That Collector Road sits very close to the property line between the applicant and the adjacent church property. In order to provide a full-size single-lane roundabout within property that is controlled by the applicant, it is required to be shifted significantly to the west and to the south, so as not to require additional right-of-way from other property owners. So that is why within this exhibit, the central portion of the roundabout is located much further to the west of the currently proposed Collector Road intersection. So in addition to its change in location, in order to mitigate any need for additional right-of-way, there are environmentally sensitive features within the site that are located in the area where this roundabout would need to be located. And those areas are depicted in the plans in the 2 different shades of pink within the exhibit.
If you could just very briefly, for the board, touch on what environmentally sensitive areas would need to be disturbed in order to construct this roundabout on the subject property.
Yeah, so there's approximately an acre of woodlands that would need to be cleared in this area. There is a crossing of a stream in this area. This design encroaches into the riparian buffer, and it also has impacts to steep slopes within the property.
Okay. And in your opinion, are any of these impacts necessary to provide safe and efficient intersection design at the intersection of the West Pleasant Grove Road and proposed collector?
No, they are not necessary as depicted in the traffic study and as testified to earlier. All the intersection of the collector road with West Pleasant Grove Road requires in terms of traffic control is a stop sign.
Should a roundabout be required, is there an alternative design that can be provided without creating this environmental impact?
There is an alternative. The alternative to this full-size roundabout would be a mini roundabout.
Okay, I'd like to show you what I've marked as Exhibit A56.
Mr. Edelman, after you're done discussing A56, can we take our break for the evening?
Sure, absolutely. Nicole, could you please describe what's shown on Exhibit A56? I assume you prepared this as well, is that correct?
Yes, I prepared this exhibit. It depicts, here we have an aerial background, so you can see the existing features, including the church located immediately to the right or east of the proposed Collector Road intersection. Here we are depicting, for the traffic control at West Pleasant Grove Road and the Collector Road, a mini roundabout. You can see it fits very well within the confines of the intersection as it's depicted within the current conditional use plans. It does not require a significant shift in the alignment as with the full-size roundabout. So it is in keeping with the general design characteristics and the location of the existing intersection. So it's a much smaller circular intersection. You can see as depicted on the plan and as noted in the text on the plan that design speeds entering or approaching the mini roundabout are 30 miles per hour, which would be appropriate and in keeping with the characteristics that exist along West Pleasant Grove Road. And it accommodates the pedestrian crossing, taking the proposed trail to the opposite side of West Pleasant Grove Road to the edge of the right-of-way. So this mini roundabout, much smaller in nature, eliminates the impacts, but still accommodates the necessary vehicles along this route, both today and with the proposed development. Mini roundabouts accommodate both school buses and large vehicles by providing a traversable central island. So whereas a full-size traditional roundabout provides a central island that is not mountable, a mini roundabout provides a mountable central island. So what is depicted as the center of the circle, which is yellow in the exhibit, that would be mountable by large vehicles. It is constructed in a way that deters passenger vehicles that don't need to use it, but is easily traversable and comfortable for school buses and larger vehicles such as emergency vehicles or trucks to be able to traverse through the intersection appropriately. And we did take a look at the amount of heavy vehicles that would require use of the traversable central island, the larger vehicles, and they account for only about 2% of the total traffic on West Pleasant Grove Road today. So that demonstrates a low occurrence of vehicles that would traverse the mini roundabout central island. And even with some increase in that, it would still be a low occurrence of those types of vehicles.
Nicole, is there additional right-of-way that's required in order to be able to construct this design?
There is some coordination and necessary property within the church adjacent, and you can see that on the plan. Again, the corner between the applicant's property and the church property is very close to the collector road as it is depicted in the current conditional use application plan. And you can see by the boundaries of those properties, there is a small corner within the church property that would be impacted by this design in order to provide the appropriate alignment to get the reduced speeds that are appropriate as you approach and depart this mini roundabout.
Okay, so is it your understanding that Toll would be willing to attempt to get that additional right-of-way from the church in those minor amounts to create this design?
That is correct.
And is it your understanding that Toll would be willing to construct this if the township was looking for additional traffic calming along West Pleasant Grove Road?
Yes, that is correct.
Pat, at this point, I think we should take that break.
Thank you, Greg. Ladies and
welcome.
gentlemen, we're going to go off the record for about 5 minutes and allow the court reporter a break. Will, I actually need to log off, and I'm going to need you to let me back in. I need to reboot the program. Just let me back in, please, as co-host. Thanks. Is the board ready to begin again?
I am.
Susan, are you prepared to go back on the record?
Yes.
Greg, are you ready?
Yes, we're ready.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back on the record. And Mr. Edelman, if you wouldn't mind, please continuing with your examination of the witness.
Absolutely, thank you. Ms. Kline, are there other alternatives for providing traffic calming along West Pleasant Grove Road?
Yes, and on behalf of the applicant, we did propose some additional traffic calming measures.
Okay, I'd like to